It really started as like hey, let's just throw a party for our 5th year anniversary.
This is The Fabulist. I'm Joel Pilger. Running a creative studio or production company looks glamorous from the outside, but inside, it's grit. It's pivots, face plants, burnout, and finally, those moments when everything clicks. This is the podcast for founders by founders. Honest, drink-in-hand conversations that skip the show reel and get into the messy business of running a standout studio that produces truly great work. I've built studios, advised leaders, and today I run Forum, the private community for my guests and founders like them. Many conversations here continue there. Okay, ready? Let's get into it. To hear more of these episodes or to push your creative business forward, just go to joelpilger.com. Say hello to Cory Livengood and Meryn Hayes, where we are talking about Dash Bash. Now, that is the motion design festival that began actually as a studio anniversary party and has since grown into a Raleigh, North Carolina-based hub for creativity and collaboration, and of course, community. Now, we dig into why do they run the Bash? How has this event evolved? And the hard work of producing meaningful industry gathering, and how these kinds of connections turn into real opportunities, maybe even better mental health for creatives. You can expect some practical takeaways on event strategy, community building, and where Dash Bash is headed next. You're going to hear someone say, let's throw a big party, but they have serious intent behind it. Let's go. Okay, so how about this? Give me a little context on what are your formal roles inside the studio? And Cory, you go first.
Sure. Title, creative director, founder. Mac and I started the company together in 2015, migrating from an agency where we were both animators. Classic, we can do this ourselves story, right?
Right.
And roles these days in this day and age, I'm creative director, right? So overseeing the look and feel of projects, the brand, the creative, the output.
Yep. Okay. Very cool. Meryn?
Yeah. So I'm our executive producer. I sometimes have my shit together. And I've been with Dash, what is it now? It'll be 7 years, I think, in the fall. And I also worked at the agency where Mac and Cory met, Classic, and joined the project management team and worked my way up. And they called me one day and I was like, are y'all sure? And here we are.
Yeah.
So Dash is just pushing all of its talent from that agency.
There were a few years where that was the case.
The Raleigh community is a small creative one, so not hard to do.
I have no doubts, right? Because my years being a leader amongst the Denver scene, it was a very similar thing, right? It's pretty small town. Meryn, I am curious, as an EP, are you a producer at heart, or are you a salesperson at heart, or an operations person at heart?
Producer at heart. So at the agency, I got a background in the project management side. I actually have a degree in photography. Went to school in upstate New York in Rochester, and I was like, I'm going to be a photographer. And then my junior year, I was like, wait a minute, I don't want to move to New York City and become a freelance photographer, which is what my whole class was going to do. And so I discovered a class that had some like project management. And I was like, oh, I can take my type A Virgo-ness and do something creative with it. And so it comes from that side and learned the rest along the way.
So the two of you are part of a team. About what size is this team? And is it mostly in Raleigh, or is it spread around?
We're currently 7, and me, Mac, and Meryn are in Raleigh, and everyone else, the other 4, are spread around. So we're in
East Coast and Texas.
Yeah, Florida, Boston, and Texas. Yeah.
And how many years has Dash been a going concern now since you and Mac got it started?
This is year 10 this year. So 10th anniversary is in October, mid-October. So yeah, we're about to be the big 1-0. I know,
did
crazy,
it.
right?
Woo! Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Congrats. Now, how many years into that story did somebody have this bright idea of, let's start a conference? That sounds like a lot of fun.
It's funny. It was year 5 was when the idea really started gelling. And it really started as like hey, let's just throw a party for our 5th year anniversary. And so it wasn't ever really even meant to be like a quote unquote conference, right?
Oh, really?
It was more like, okay, we're turning 5. That's a big deal. Let's see if some of our clients, some of our freelance connections, some of our friends in the industry want to get together and do something cool. And, we were like, we should say a few remarks, right? have some people speak. And then, we're like, well, this is starting to sound a lot like a conference.
Little by
And the
little.
other, the other wrinkle was this was 2020. We had started this whole planning process for what was turning into a conference modeled on Blend. I'm sure Blend is pretty well known in the industry, obviously. And 3 years, I just really loved the size of it, loved the work, the flow of it, the run of show of it and everything. And so that was sort of a model. And of course, COVID hit and we had to put everything on pause. And so we ended up picking it back up. And the first one was actually our 6th year in 2021 when we actually ended up finally doing it.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, Cory, but like we went to that last Blend. What was that? Blend 2019. And then we were going to announce the bash was going to be a year later because we knew that was going to be the last Blend. And we were like, how great. We'll use this as like hey, it's not goodbye. It's see you next year. Come to Raleigh next time.
Yeah.
See you in a year. And we started planning and then the world ended. And so we had to pivot. And that was the first one. Ended up in 2021 because of that.
I love this because one of my first questions was the origin story, right? Of what inspired you to launch it? And we've come up about the answer organically. And what I'm hearing is, one, you both were plugged into Blend and inspired by that as like a model, and sad that it was going away, as was I, because I was there and also like, what?
Yeah.
This can't end. But I also love that, I think now I know why it was called Bash. Because it sounds like, like from the start, it was like, let's throw a big party, and then it somehow transmogrified into a conference. So in what year was the first Bash, Meryn?
September 2021.
Okay. And has it happened every year or every other year?
We've done it every 2 years. After the first year, and we were all exhausted and didn't know if we were ever going to do it again. Like we didn't set out for this, obviously, to be like, it's going to be a conference. It's going to be every 2 years. It's just grown organically, which has been cool. And we all decided that was awesome. We want to do it again. Mac was getting married that next year. And so we were like, okay, that seems like a lot. Let's do it in 2 years. And so it's just organically turned into every 2 years, but also it allows us to have enough time to recuperate and go back to our other job, which this is not what we're doing full time. It's running a studio and doing this. And so it gives us a little bit of
breathing room
to breathe before we start again.
Okay, so perfect little segue there. You just inspired me, Meryn, is for anyone that doesn't know either of you, Cory, tell us, what is the Dash Bash? And then introduce yourself and tell us about the studio. And then I'll call in Meryn to do her version.
The Dash Bash is a 2 and most recently 3-day motion design festival where we invite some of the who's who in the industry, but also rising stars and just anyone who we think is inspiring to us to come and speak to our whole community. So we have a lot of freelancers, we have a lot of in-house, we have a lot of producers, we have the gamut of the motion design industry coming. And they spend a couple of days being inspired by one another, by our speakers, and meeting IRL for the first time in many cases, and just having a great time partying here in Raleigh. And my name is Cory Livengood. I am the founder of Dash Studio. We also throw the Dash Bash. And I am a North Carolina native. I started the agency with my business partner, Mac, and we met at a previous agency along with Meryn and struck out on our own to make a little pocket of motion design and creativity here in the South. We were noticing a lot of the major players are in New York and LA and Chicago and these other larger markets, and we just felt like there's so much creative energy here that people don't know about. Let's stay here and try to grow it from our region. And I think we've been pretty successful. We're in year 10 now.
And what is your role inside the studio other than being a partner and having to wear a zillion
That's certainly
hats?
what it's turned into these days, I think. Mac and I started as animators. So in the early days, we were making everything. And then as we started bringing on more help, both to produce and manage, but also to create, nowadays I'm the creative director by title. And so I'm managing our art director and our other creative teams. I'm art directing specific projects. I'm also just overseeing our own brand, our clients' brands, and keeping the creative on track. Whereas Mac is, of course, doing more of the operations when it comes to sales, new business, and outreach.
Got it. Okay, Meryn, your turn. So please introduce yourself and tell us first, what's your role inside the studio? And then tell us what's your role in this crazy conference thing.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Meryn Hayes. I'm the executive producer at Dash. And what I do day to day really depends on the day, which is one of my favorite things about what I do. No 2 days are the same. Depends on the state of a project. So we have another producer, Ashley. She and I split managing everything. So we'll be kicking off creatives, jumping into new business calls with Mac, trying to get new business. And then on top of that, we've got the Dash Bash. And so it's a team effort, honestly, but most of where my role comes in, I've been reaching out to all of our speakers, trying to get speaker coordination, on-site scheduling. Truly, it's the biggest project we have that we take on our own. So it's a team effort for sure.
Yeah, the people that I know that put on conferences, I am always blown away at what a massive undertaking it is and rarely profitable. I always look at people and think, are you sure you want to sign up for this? I host and lead some events, but nothing on that scale. And I think you just spilled the beans there, Meryn, that this like almost the largest ongoing project at the studio?
Easily.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we do a ton of campaign work and we've done a ton of event work, which has been really helpful, both at the previous agency we were at and then currently we have clients that do their own events. And so that knowledge has been really helpful because year one, we had no idea what we were doing. Truly, you don't know what you don't know. And there's so much to event planning that if you're doing AV or production, you're in a tiny sliver of the whole event, but doing a whole room blocks, catering, it's everything, right? So it's definitely turned out to be one of our biggest endeavors.
So, Cory, thinking back to the origins of the Bash, and again, I love that there's this, let's throw a big party, which mutated into a conference. I'm curious to hear from your point of view, why do a conference? Why even do a party? Why even do a conference? Why do it in Raleigh? What's the raison d'etre of, other than Blend was cool and it went away, but why do it?
Yeah.
Why do it at all?
It's interesting because when Mac and I first started the studio, previous to that, I don't think we were fully aware of what the motion design industry was like and how great the people were and all the sort of love that exists. And I say that because around the time we were leaving our agency and starting Dash, we had gone to Blend and a few other festivals, and that's really opened our eyes. And we were like, holy moly, look at this creativity. Look at the people who are out here. Look at this community. And because we were in Raleigh, in North Carolina, in a market that's not as well known as some of the bigger markets, we were able to make connections with studios and freelancers and artists that we had idolized and looked up to for years. And we're meeting them in person. And we're like, holy crap, you're a real person and you're friendly and you're not this celebrity. And so all that is to say is that the energy and the confidence to start a studio and try to put our name out there is a direct result of going to events like the Dash Bash when we were younger. And so when we finally got to the point where we're planning this party and we're thinking, gosh, this is turning into something more than just like a celebration, we're like, oh, this is a really good opportunity maybe to do for others what was done for us when we were younger and when we were breaking into the industry. So my favorite thing about the Bash is the fact that we're bringing in all these people who maybe are getting their minds blown by these incredible speakers or meeting people that they've idolized and realizing, oh, it's so easy to talk to you. I've been looking up to you like a celebrity for years and you're actually just a real person like me. So that's a why for me anyway.
I love that because there's a demystifying and a disarming that I heard you just describe of, in a way, that thought of giving, I don't know if it's the current or the next generation, but giving others permission to play at whatever level you wish to play in this industry. There's no, right? Hopefully there's no real barriers. You're welcome here. You're rubbing elbows with the best of the best and the celebrities.
Yeah.
I'm putting air quotes around that. For those of us that are maybe well known in the industry, like you said, we're just people. We're all on a similar journey together. So let me get a bit of a maybe debrief from you, Meryn. I'd be curious from your perspective. We just wrapped this year's Bash, okay? We were all there a few months ago. For anybody that wasn't there, what was it about this year that made it special? Or is there anything that surprised you or really energized you in terms of how it played out?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has always just blown me away is the speakers. And this year, everyone knocked it out of the park. I think it is always interesting because people are really curious, like how we pick our speakers. And to Cory's point, it's like, who do we want? Who do we want to invite? We're like enticing these speakers so we can meet them and be like, oh, wait, can you talk on this stage too? So it's like picking some heroes of ours. But then one thing that I'm especially proud of is just finding like the up and comers, like Cory mentioned. Like, how do we find people that no one knows about, but they have a really incredible story to share? And seeing them go from how nervous they are ahead of time, or they're doubting themselves, and they go on stage and they just crush it. Everyone truly did, with honesty and empathy and like beautiful stories and beautiful artwork that they shared. That's just such a nice transformation to see, and let all of the audience into these people's lives and give them such energy. So I think that's one thing that always just blows me away. And then the second part of that is just getting to see the buzz in the lobby, like the community. Cory mentioned we started it in 2020 technically, and that was like a really hard time to exist. We all felt so distant from each other. And I think one thing I've just especially appreciated seeing ever since we did it that first time is just seeing all those people together and knowing that like we provided a space for that, like people to meet for the first time. They've worked together on bookings for years and they've never met. That is so cool to be a part of and always gives me energy.
I'm guessing both of you have had this experience where we would get together, and I say we, those of us in the industry, we would do conferences and events and festivals all the time. There were like these anchor events that would happen throughout the years. And then when COVID happened, it was devastating, right? It was really soul-sucking if you had this community and you're very accustomed to hanging out with your people. And so to see these events coming back and flourishing, for me, I'm like you, I'm thinking of the moment in the lobby or the times I had in the lobby, and there's just throngs of people. And there's always those moments where somebody's coming up to me and saying, Joel, I've always wanted to say hi or whatever. And then off we go. And those are just really special moments. Cory, what about you? Do you have any sort of particular pride moments of what just happened?
Yeah, ditto to Meryn, right? Not to do a cop-out answer, but really it is like seeing here's an anecdote, right? It's like we have after parties every day during the period of the conference, right? And normal situation, you book a venue, people come, there's an end time, right? All right, everyone's got to be out by midnight or 11 or whatever it is. And I remember we had to like push people out of the venue because they didn't want to stop talking to each other. And then they were on the street out front talking for another 2 hours, right? Beyond the borders of the bar, right? And that sentiment of just my voice is hoarse and I'm tired and I need to go home, but I just can't tear myself away from these conversations I'm having with these people that I either just met or have known forever, or in many cases both. I don't know. Walking around and seeing that happen is just puts a big smile on my face because it's just really, I don't know, uplifting.
Our event coordinator was worried that people would get bored. She was like, you don't have any like entertainment. We had music, right? And she was like, do you feel like you need something else? And I was like, we know our audience pretty well. Like, I don't think we're going to have a problem. And to Cory's point, when we were like pushing people out, she was like, no, you're right. I've never seen anything like that ever. And she's in the event space. She does weddings. She does corporate events. She does it all. And she's like, I've never seen that.
There's something about our industry. There's something about getting people together. And I'm laughing, Cory, because of your anecdote about the call time or the end time, because I hosted one of my Fuse dinners, right? The night before the bash, which was a really special opportunity to get, I don't know, we're about 16 or 18 of us that were all founders and business owners that got together for a dinner. And I'm always amazed because I'll usually start the dinner at 6:30 or 7, and people assume, and the restaurant assumes, okay, you'll go till maybe 9 or 10. It's easily midnight or later when people are walking out. And then we're all going, have we literally been here for 5 hours? And I'm like,
what else is there to talk about?
Crazy.
Right?
And people are like, yeah, I know. And often, depending on what city in the world I'm in, there's often let's all go to the bar and
keep
Yeah,
talking.
go somewhere else for a nightcap. I love the energy and the enthusiasm that's in our industry. And also there's this, I don't know, there's a default openness. And I don't know, I'm going to share with you and I'm just going to give knowledge and information and ideas away freely because I know it all comes back to me and we're all helping each other. So maybe that's a good segue into this next question that I would love to ask the two of you. How do gatherings like the Bash move our industry forward? How do they help us as humans or even as studios, right? Because I serve a community of founders. How do they help us move forward? Why are they such an important part of what it means to be living out this life? Cory, I'll hand it to you first.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of angles there. I think that from a practical standpoint, it is an opportunity to meet potential collaborators, and I would say even in some ways clients. The festival is focused more on the creators and the studios and the freelancers than it is on the clients. But I've heard so many stories about, oh, I got a gig because of the Bash, because I met so, and we've even gotten work out of it very organically, not like directly. I met a person who couldn't do a booking because they were on vacation, so they called me because they met me at the Bash, and I got the booking, right? That kind of a chain of event. That's very practical. I think that the psychological way it helps push people in studios forward goes back to that ability to be able to talk shop and be understood and validate that the industry is difficult but rewarding, that there are other people who are struggling with the same issues that I'm struggling with, and they've overcome it, so can I. I think the psychological layer is in some ways more important because I do feel like it is an industry that is in turmoil a lot of the time because of emerging technologies and things like that. But also, you're not alone. And it feels like you're alone a lot of times, especially as a freelancer or even a studio owner, because that's an isolating role in a studio, I think. And so to go out and be like, whew, okay, I'm not the only one kind of working through this is really validating. And you can come back and be really energized to push through an issue, whether it's creative or operational or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool thought, because what I heard you say was, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, everyone else is, right? It's this moment we can let our guards down and get into a room and even publicly say, hey, this is tricky. This is tough. And maybe it's even painful at times, but it is. I love that you said the word rewarding. Meryn, what's your take on why these events are important to us as individuals or even as studios, groups of people?
Yeah, I think it's taking the conversations that I know are happening in smaller forums or in private and just, again, providing a space for that. The fact that we had maybe, I know 2 speakers, maybe even 3 speakers talking about like, how do I retire in this industry? Because no one knows. People have done it clearly, but it's not so widely discussed or widely talked about. People are unsure of what the future means for everyone, just as a human, not just as an animator or as a creative. And so that, again, that validation that like, I might not have the answer, the person on stage might not have the answer, but this is like one of the larger groups where we can talk about this stuff together. And it's been interesting because we do it every 2 years. There are some shifts in what's happening in the world in between that time, and being able to still keep our ear to the ground and hear what's happening and then be able to bring that topic as something to discuss at the Bash has just been a way to validate what people are going through and make space for a discussion about it.
Are you guys constantly processing or reevaluating the formats? I know this is a bit of a wonky question, right? But I would think as organizers, you're probably always noticing, okay, there's opportunities where people speak on a stage and broadcast a message to the hundreds of people that are there. But there's also dinners like mine. There's workshops. There's, Q&As. I'm curious, are there things that you're looking at going forward or things that maybe you just saw that worked really well that you can share with us? Meryn, do you mind giving us a peek?
Yeah, we are ever evolving. I think each year we do it. Last Bash in 2023, I was like, that was better than the first one. How could it have gotten better? And then it was like, how do we do more? How do we hit the top? And then this year someone was like, this was the best one yet. I was like, at some point, this is gonna like keep can't keep doing this. But one thing I think that has allowed us to keep evolving is trying to figure out, like, how do we keep this interesting? The format of like long speaker blocks was something that year one, that's just what we did because we didn't know any better. And I think in 2023, we started pulling some shorter formats. So instead of an hour-long block or a 45-minute block, we did a few shorter segments, lightning talks, and incorporating some Q&A because I think there was, I think the interactions that come between the audience and the speakers are always really interesting ones, and wanting to make it feel more like an engaging experience than a passive one. And so then this year we were like, how do we top that? And Cory and I went to Creative Mornings with Mac back in December. And Creative Mornings traditionally has one speaker and it's about one topic. But this past year they did something called
open mic night.
Open mic night. And they said, hey, if you want to submit your 5-minute, whatever you want to talk about for 5 minutes, submit here, and then we'll truly have a few open slots that are like get up on the spot and talk. And as it was happening, I leaned over and I was like, this is a cool idea. We should do something like that. And so that's how the popcorn talks this year were discovered. And so I think that was a really nice break in format from the energy. Like the energy throughout the day kind of shifts. And so keeping it a little like, what's going to happen next, I think really helps that. Yeah. And then on top of that, we've always debated, do we do workshops? But again, how do we manage one event, let alone add something to it? But I think this year we felt we knew the basic formula and that was pretty solid. And so this felt like a good opportunity to try something new and ended up being really great. And we got some really great feedback on adding that. So that was good.
The only thing I might add to that too is every year we've been really deliberate about doing a post-event survey with our attendees, and it's pretty thorough. And we don't get 100% participation because it's a bit on the lengthier side sometimes, but we really glean a lot of great information out of that survey. And so every year we're going to look at that data and be like, look, for 2 bashes in a row, people are clamoring for workshops. Let's talk about what that looks like. Give the people what they want, as they say. And so the other part of that, I think, is, all right, people want a little more time for networking. People feel like it's starting to drag on the second day at this time because it's tiring listening to hour-long talks over and over again. So that feedback from our own attendees is also a huge part of the programming changes from bash to bash.
Yeah, really good point.
So as you look into the future, to that point, Cory, what gets you excited in the maybe nerdy aspect of how you might shift up the format or evolve the programming of it and all that kind of thing? But just generally also, what gets you excited about the potential for the bash and events like this in terms of how they're going to just continue to help our industry move forward?
Yeah, I think for me, I like integrating things that are interactive in a way for our audience. So it isn't just a passive experience. And so this year we had a competition that happened on stage, demo reel competition. You could vote for your favorite on your phone, and there's like a back and forth, and the bracket and all that excitement. Or even something as simple as like a demographic quiz that Mac did when he opened the whole event, and just finding out like, where are you from? What is your role? And seeing that data in real time on the projector on the stage is really cool, I think, for people to immediately be like, wow, this is happening and I'm a part of it. I'm not just a passive person sitting here experiencing it, I'm a part of it. And even looking forward, I want to do more things like that. Like in the lobby, the second year we had like an interactive exhibit. We weren't able to get one put together for this year, but it's like more of that kind of thing where even when you're in your downtime, there's something for you to go and do and be a part of and participate in. And then I think the workshops are a part of that too, because that is a more active engagement. The workshops this year, we had 4 of them, a separate ticket, smaller crowd, because we wanted it to be more hands-on. So people were actually creating a stop-motion animation, or they were going out in Raleigh with microphones and recording Foley sound for a sound workshop. It was a lot more tactical, and that stuff is just super fun and super cool, that participation element.
Yeah, I heard some really fun feedback from people that were involved in those workshops. They sounded extremely hands-on, very practical, and also just, I don't know, unexpected. I thought that was really
cool. We were
cool.
like, I hope this works. To be frank, we've never done it before, so it was like, oh, The smaller ticket was so that we could have smaller class sizes, but also so if it didn't work, we'd piss off less people.
But it sounds like it was successful, and you're going to continue to iterate and
I think we would
explore
have
that
to.
further.
Yeah. It was successful, it was fun, and it was popular. So it'd be silly for us not to keep trying to improve that and see how that fits in.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Meryn, what about you from your perspective? What excites you about the future and the potential of the Bash and events like this?
I think it's the not knowing, say we do it in another 2 years, like that the speakers we might be going after, like no one might know who they are, or they might still be in school right now. They might be sitting in a classroom and you could end up on the Bash stage in 2 years. There's something cool about the like unknown of what's going to happen at the next Bash, because the industry kind of shifts and goes through the waves of what's happening. There's like we're going to figure it out together. And I think the more tactical version to that answer to that question is like, how do we, format wise, we're a little limited in the space. There's only so many spaces that fit that number of people in Raleigh. And so the venue is nice for that. So trying to find more ways to make it interactive and opportunities for more like one-on-one dialogues or like smaller conversations, I think is something that we've always gotten feedback on and would love to try and push. How do we facilitate more smaller conversations like that? But yeah.
It's funny, as you mentioned that, I'm thinking, wait a minute, you're right. Because it's every other year, so much changes, right? If you do an event every year, yes, there's a lot of change, but the 2-year thing is pretty interesting to think, what's our industry going to be talking about, dealing with? How will things have changed, evolved, pivoted over 2 years?
Crazy.
It's kind of...
It's a long time. It's a long time. It's a short time. It's a long time. What is time? But it really allows for, change.
A lot is going to happen. I'm not going to bring up any specific hot buzzwords right now, but just suffice it to say, oh my God, 2 years from now, what are we going to be talking about? I don't know. Cory, does that enthrall you or terrify you?
I go back and forth, honestly. I feel like in some ways, it's the appeal of the Bash, right? Is that it gives people time to, I don't know, digest what's going on. We've talked about, could we do this every year? Would we want to do this every year? Does our audience want us to do it every year? There's a lot of those questions because some people are like, I got another family vacation coming up. I can't do this There's other practical reasons for doing it every 2 years, but absolutely, you're right. It's part of it is just seeing where the industry is at the time. It doesn't scare me. I think after doing it for 3 times now, it just excites me. Like, oh, what is the next big thing we're going to be like discussing? Even the buzzword that you're avoiding dropping, which I totally get, did not come up as much at the Bash as I expected in a way that I thought was really healthy. It was like, not about that. It was about, and it wasn't even about like technical stuff or the work. It was like the people who are making the work was like the thesis of a lot of the talks, organically the thesis. And so that was really interesting. And how is that going to evolve? I don't know. It's exciting.
Yeah. And we know
it will.
This.
Yeah, it will.
It will evolve.
It will.
It will change. And I think if I could just sing your praises as a group that spearheads this event, right, this festival, is it's really great for your community, those of us in this industry, that we can all show up, not only hear from really great minds and thinkers, but hang out and socialize and build community and collectively, I don't know, in a way, normalize the changes, the transitions, the challenges, and say, you know what? It is challenging, but we're going to get through this, and maybe it's going to be great because we're coming together and sharing all that stuff. I don't know. Does that spur maybe a final thought, Meryn, from you? And then I'll get a wrap-up thought from Cory as well.
Yeah, not to get like existential in the end, but change is the only constant, right, in life. Always has been. Technology has always changed throughout human history. And I think we feel less alone when we're together. And so seeing communities like pop up because of the Bash, got to shout out Mothers of MoGraph because they basically began because they were like talking about motherhood at the last Bash. And so finding other people that you feel connection with is going to be what helps navigate uncertainty and change when you're feeling like you don't know what's happening next. So really proud to be able to have a place for that and create a wonderful space for a really amazing community. I don't know that we acknowledge that enough, that how special this is. Like, again, I come from a photography background. I don't think like a bunch of photographers get together and they like share their scopes of work. Maybe they do, but it's truly a space for like people to be open with each other. And I don't know that you can find that in other industries. So really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, I celebrate all of those types of communities, right? I certainly try and bring owners together on a regular basis inside communities just to do that, what you described right there. Let's talk about the practical issues of running a business and so forth. Cory, what's your existential version or philosophical thought of why this is meaningful and why you're going to continue to do this bash?
Let's see. No pressure. I think, for me, it really is. I think something like the Bash, where it is a conference on paper, but it's not about a new technology or necessarily even the work. It's about the people, like I was saying earlier. To me, that makes it a little bit different. It makes it something that I think, Meryn, you're right. There's not a lot of industries, I think, that do this kind of thing, but they should. The lawyers and the photographers and the accountants should have a conference like this, where it isn't about the work, it's about the humanity. And so for me, I think I'm really proud of that. I want to keep pushing that forward because even when it's super stressful and we've been pulling our hair out trying to juggle our client work and our studio work and throw the Bash, and we're like 2 weeks out and we're like, oh my God, we're never doing this again. The moment I step into the lobby and I see all those people talking and smiling and laughing, and I know we've talked about a lot of heavy subjects, but it's not all doom and gloom. In fact, it's quite the opposite. There's a lot of just effervescence there. When I see that, I'm like, oh, of course we're doing it again. Of course we're doing it again. Like, we have no choice.
Every time.
Just because it's uplifting for us as organizers too, but I think for everybody.
Yeah, very meaningful. Anyways, I appreciate that summary. And I love that point you made of, I think these events used to be about the work, and they have shifted to being really more about the humanity, the relationships of, coming together and sharing way more than just
which is still there, and it's still important, and you can frame a conversation around the work or around the behind the scenes. But I love that it's gone beyond that.
Yep. I'm very excited to see how the Bash evolves for the next edition, which is, Meryn, what year will it be when the next Bash? What's the next one?
Still working on it, but it would be every 2 years, so 2027.
Wow. See, it's kind of wild to even say that number
I know.
out loud. Wow, 2027. What are we going to be talking about in 2027?
Got to come to the Bash to find out.
I know, right? Got to come to the Bash. Look, I'm happy and proud to support you guys and cheer you on. I'm a big fan of Mac and, of course, what you're doing at the studio as well. So kudos to all of that. And just on behalf of our industry, thank you for what you guys are doing. Thanks for bringing us together. And really appreciate both of you showing up for this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having us today and for coming to the Bash. It was fun to hang.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joel.
Thanks for listening, and huge thank you to our amazing audio partner, Coop Studios, who makes this show possible. If you're serious about running a resilient studio or production company that unleashes your greatest creative work, apply to join Forum. Learn more at joelpilger.com, and I'll see you there.